Welcome to the Kickin the Tires Podcast.
And welcome back, everyone. Quite a weekend up at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Ryan Blaney gets the win.
Huge win.
Yeah, huge. And maybe more importantly, locks himself into the round of 8.
Exactly. That win, it wasn't just, another checkered flag. It felt like a massive strategic move. We've really dug into Blaney's post-race comments because, honestly, they lay out the perfect playbook for how a team leverages a win like that early in a playoff round.
Right. We're not just doing a race recap here today. This is more of an analysis of what goes on behind the scenes, the team dynamics under pressure, how they immediately shift focus.
Yeah, resource allocation.
Exactly. Resource allocation and, the nuts and bolts of managing that car, especially with that new tire. When everything's on the line, our mission here is basically to pull out all the key strategic insights for you following the playoffs.
Okay, let's dive right in then. The first thing that jumped out was Blaney's immediate focus on the team, the whole organization. Yeah. He gave massive props, his words, to Team Penske, Wood Brothers too. Said the preparation, practice, qualifying, the race itself, that was the real key.
And you see the proof, right?
Massive props to all of Team Penske, Wood Brothers. We did a great job leading up to this race and preparing, and through the weekend, practice, qualifying, in the race, our cars were really fast. And as a whole company, that's something they should really be proud of. I'm just in the fortunate situation I get to drive a fast race car, but yeah, it speaks volumes of the hard work that they've done.
It wasn't just Blaney having a good day. Look at the results. Blaney first, Josh Berry, running with Penske support, he comes home second.
Incredible run for him.
Yeah, and Joey Logano's right there in the top 4. Blaney flat out called it a great day for the whole company. That tells you something about their coordination, how aligned they are.
And he talked about the people side too. Mentioned the trust with his crew chief, Jonathan, how it keeps building with time, but then he kind of downplayed his own role.
Right, the comment about just driving the really fast race car they give him.
Yeah. Is that just being humble, or is there a strategic element there, like keeping the team unified during this high-stress playoff period?
Well, I think it's probably a bit of both, but strategically. It's smart leadership. In the playoffs, ego can just kill a team. So by constantly pushing the credit back to the crew, back to Penske, he reinforces that feeling of we're all in this together. He specifically said he couldn't be prouder of the 12 team, how they refine their craft, get closer bonded. That unity, that's the foundation you need when things inevitably get tough later on.
Okay, let's unpack this. The strategic advantage. Blaney called winning the first race of the round the dream deal.
The dream deal is winning the first race of the round, right? So where you're already know that you can focus on the first race of the next round a little bit earlier and maybe can experiment with something, in the other 2 races to maybe help, like next week. Maybe you try something at Kansas that might go better at Vegas, 2.5 miles. So it just gives you the options to do that.
So if you're locked in like this, what specific advantages does Team Penske get right now?
The big one is time and where they put their resources. Blaney mentioned they can start working on Vegas. That's the first race of the next round, the round of 8. They can start working on that a little bit earlier.
Right.
Think about that. While everyone else is sweating points at Kansas and the Roval, pouring resources into those races.
Penske already looking ahead.
Exactly. They can shift simulator time, engineering focus, maybe even some shop prep towards Vegas. It's a huge head start.
So it's not just getting a week's jump, it's fundamentally changing where the effort goes. But what about those options, as he put it? What can they actually try at Kansas now, being another 1.5 miles?
Yeah, that's where it gets really interesting. Kansas and Vegas, both 1.5 miles. So now they have the freedom at Kansas to try stuff they wouldn't normally risk if they were, fighting for points. Maybe a really aggressive aero setup, maybe something experimental with a chassis.
Stuff that could totally backfire.
Precisely. If it doesn't work, no big deal, really. They're locked in. They just pack up. But if they hit on something, imagine finding a setup tweak at Kansas that gives them 0.2 at Vegas. That's a massive advantage, and they get real-world data on it.
Okay, but Blaney also insisted they won't go relax for 2 weeks. He wants to stay in on-kill mode. Is there maybe a risk there, pushing too hard when you don't have to, potentially making a mistake?
It's a fair question. But I think that on-kill mode is more about psychology. It's about fighting off complacency, which can creep in really easily when you've got that safety net.
Right.
The win takes, like you said, a little bit of maybe weight off your shoulders about points. So now they don't have to think about points racing. They don't have to make conservative calls to protect a finish. They can just focus purely on winning, on maximizing the car's speed every single week. That actually keeps you sharper mentally.
Yeah.
It's liberating in a way.
All right, let's shift from the strategy board to the track itself. That final battle with Josh Berry was something else. Blaney looked like he was really having to work for it after that last restart. Why the struggle?
Yeah, he was definitely scrambling. The key was that last stop. He only took 2 tires.
Oh.
And he said himself, that choice definitely changed my car. It started getting loose really quickly. So under pressure from Berry, he's out there hunting, trying the 3rd lane, the 4th lane. He mentioned splitting seams, just desperate to find pace and a line that worked a little bit better. It's a great example of a driver having to adapt on the fly when the car's balance just goes away.
And he made a point to praise Berry afterwards for racing him clean, said he laid no bumper, which kind of leads into the whole teammate thing, racing Joey Logano earlier. How does Penske handle that?
Blaney was pretty clear.
I 100% expect Josh to go try to win that race, so that was fun racing with him. He got close a couple times. I appreciate no bumper being laid to me. That was a lot of fun racing Josh. He's been a great part to this, organization this year, and proud of those guys for having a good run. But yeah, they came on strong for a while, and that was tough. That was a tough 20 laps to hold him off until I gapped him again a little bit with maybe 6 to go when his right rear got burned off of it. But yeah, that's what racing's all about.
The expectation from Roger Penske is race hard, absolutely, but race clean. He said flat out he was never going to lay a bumper to Joey.
When Joey and I are racing for the lead, we know what this is for. So fully expect us to race hard, but race clean. I was never going to lay a bumper to Joey. Trying to get by him there in stage 3 or stage 1, I think. When he was leading, I got by him. I just didn't want to do it that way. Teammate or not, I didn't want to do it that way, especially with a teammate. I'm not just going to rough you up. So, but I fully expect to race hard, and that's what Roger expects of us. That's what Eddie and Len expect with the Wood brothers. Going to go out there, we're going to race really hard, but we're going to do it in a fair way.
But doesn't that kind of put them at a disadvantage sometimes? I mean, if Blaney knows he can't use the bumper on Logano in a tight spot, but maybe someone else would, aren't they giving up a potential race-winning move?
It's a calculated risk, yeah. But Penske seems to value the long game, keeping the cars in one piece, maintaining trust within the organization. That's seen as more important than maybe one single win gained by roughing someone up.
Keeps the internal drama down.
Exactly. And Blaney also mentioned how they handle potential issues. He said it's more beneficial to speak on it sooner than later, prevent stuff from festering. So they rely on communication to manage those intense moments, rather than letting them blow up the whole championship effort.
Okay, let's talk about the track and that tire. Big topic all weekend. Blaney said the track got racy, but also that the tires fell off a cliff.
I thought the tire was really good today. You could really piss it off if you were not kind to it early. You could burn the right rear off it really quick. And you saw that. I think you saw a lot of guys hit a cliff through the runs. And so I thought it was a step in the right direction for sure.
Yeah, the cooler temperatures were a big factor, he noted. That new tire, he said it was really good initially. If you pushed too hard too early in a run, performance would vanish. So it forced drivers to be really mindful of tire conservation, especially early on. That's why you saw guys struggling later in runs, like Blaney after taking just 2 tires.
But the flip side was it opened up lanes, right? He mentioned the 4th lane was available, plus the 3rd, 2nd, even down low, like a 1.5 bottom lane. That searching made for some great racing.
Absolutely. That's what the tire was designed to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Create fall off, make drivers hunt for grip. And Blaney's comments really confirmed it delivered. It put a premium on managing the tires and finding where the track had grip.
And speaking of rewards, you got to talk about the lobster.
I thought the lobster was one of the coolest things in Victory Lane. I've wanted to hold that fucking lobster for 30 years. I've wanted to hold that thing up in Victory Lane. Just because I saw guys doing it when I was growing up, and it was just the coolest thing ever. And it's funny, tracks have certain trophies that catch your eye as a kid, and this is one of them. And it was super cool to do that today. Sorry for swearing. But lobster's cool, man. It's so cool. And but yeah, I love coming up here. This part of the country is gorgeous.
Yes! You could tell that meant something more than just the win.
Oh, for sure. He talked about watching those races growing up, wanting to hold that giant lobster for like 30 years, called it one of the coolest things ever.
Yeah.
Winning there in the Northeast, a place he clearly feels is deserving of a playoff race. It adds that personal layer, that extra bit of confidence maybe.
Definitely. Okay, zooming out a bit. What about the competition? Blaney was asked if he was surprised by anyone's performance or lack thereof, especially the Toyotas. Yeah, he kind of admitted he was surprised that the Toyotas, thinking Hamlin, Bell, didn't seem to have their usual New Hampshire speed. He chalked some of it up to just the ease and flows of the sport, how things change week to week. But he also hinted that maybe that new tire, combined with the cooler conditions, could have really turned you around if your setup wasn't spot on.
So that new tire kind of tightened the setup window. If you missed it, you were really off.
That's the sense I get. It seemed like the teams that figured out how to manage that quick fall off, especially on two tires, and adapt to the track temp, like Penske clearly did, they found a big advantage over teams maybe relying more on their old notebook for that track.
Okay, so looking ahead now, they're locked in. How does that specifically change the prep for the Roval, the last race of this round? Blaney said his work doesn't change much.
Right, his personal prep stays the same. But for the team, this is maybe the biggest strategic gift of winning early in this round.
How so?
They get the chance to flip the stages. That's the key phrase Blaney used. Because they don't need stage points.
Right, they're already advancing.
Exactly. So at the Roval, they can choose to pit before the stage breaks, sacrifice those guaranteed stage points that everyone else is desperately fighting for, and have way better tires for the restart and the final run to the finish.
Yeah.
Everyone else is kind of handcuffed, having to maximize points in stages 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Blaney's team can completely ignore that and just set themselves up for the race win. It makes them incredibly dangerous at the Roval.
A total wildcard strategy. And finally, did this win change his overall confidence about being a championship threat?
He basically said no, which is interesting. He feels like they've been a championship contending team all year long.
So wrapping this up, the big takeaways really are Penske showing that unified strength, that preparation paying off across the board, Blaney getting that huge strategic advantage now.
The luxury, yeah.
The luxury to experiment, focus on the round of 8 early, and that disciplined, clean but hard racing approach is clearly a core part of their long-term strategy.
Right.
Great stuff. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to our analysis of Blaney's big win and what it means. Catch you next time.